Wrestling Forums. I'm Jackson Bass here with Birmingham Wrestling Club coaches Elijah and Manny Oliver. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Living the dream, man. Building one day at a time.
Awesome. So let me start out by asking, what got each of you guys into wrestling?
From the age of 5, I was like, my dad, he introduced me to it. That was before, before me was born. But at the age of 5, yeah, he introduced us to it, and pretty much from there, it was some highs and lows, but it really took off for me when I was in high school. You know, that's when I really got serious about it, really started to enjoy the grind, love the grind, really started to study wrestling more, really comprehend the techniques and positioning that come with wrestling. So that's when I really started to get serious when I was in high school, and then it just took off and built from there.
Yeah, for me, to be honest, my dad, he introduced it to me as well around probably about 5 years old. I remember seeing my brothers, like both of them were wrestling and they were competing. And I remember I told my dad, like, I wouldn't mind doing that, but to be honest, I don't know why I said it, you know. But I did, and like he introduced me to the practices, like I just said, there was some highs and lows, but like after I got into, I'm pretty sure 9th grade, and I met actually Sam Latona, Gabe Hicksonball, guys like that, they really helped me to understand like wrestling isn't as bad as you think. You know, you can always sit there and be chooser of your own destiny. And those guys were pretty much my inspiration, what helped me to get better until like, you know, surgeries and injuries and stuff like that. But my senior year, finally won a state title thanks to Coach James and my brother, Sam, and the other guys from Thompson. They all helped me out in their own way. You know?
Awesome. So both of you guys have had stellar careers in wrestling in your tenure. What have each of your high school head coaches like evolved for you guys? For you, Elijah, it's Chris Lewis, and then for you, of course, Sean Wilson.
I would say they played a very big role. I would say, but for me, unlike a lot of other people that I've encountered and even been teammates with, I mean, they have one head coach going all the way up to high school. I had 2, you know, and I was fortunate enough to have 2 because with each coach, it grew. Their level of expertise in the sport was better than the next man, if that makes sense. So I feel like Coach Lewis, he definitely laid down the foundation for me coming into high school, being a young freshman, lacked a lot of confidence. But from there, I'd say he helped definitely build my confidence and help sharpen my skills. He brought in the help that I needed to help improve my technique and help improve my position in wrestling. And from there, when I transferred over to Washington High School my senior year, the head coach there, Brian Medlin, along with a few other coaches that were there, even Coach Randy Manyweather and Coach Miller. Coach Randy Manyweather too, I'd say he played a really big part just in my foundation as a whole since I was a young pup. So, but Coach Medlin, he was a world class. He competed at the world class level. He's currently actually coaching at U of I's RTC program right now. So I would say they both played a tremendous part in who I am now. A lot of the things that we've done or that they've done while I was there competing, I still even implement them into my coaching now. I mean, they were pretty good coaches for the most part. They definitely helped not just develop myself, but other wrestlers and competitors that I was competing with and alongside while I was in high school. So, you know, to say that they, you know, developed me in a sense that, you know, was not like a big factor is, you know, is definitely an understatement. You know, they got me definitely to where I am now. If it wasn't for, I would say, Coach Lewis guiding me and showing me the ropes in high school, I wouldn't have won a Fargo State national title. And yet alone, you know, 3 consecutive state titles in the state of Tennessee, and then, you know, piggyback off that, going up to Illinois and finish the deal, you know, got another state title. So, yeah, they definitely played a big role in who I am now and pretty much my success leading up to college and even throughout college. So,
how would you say that Coach Weltzing over Thompson affected your wrestling?
Well, to be honest, coming into high school, I didn't have the best work ethic, if I would say. Like, and Coach Pike, Coach Weltzing, Coach Barnes, they really helped enforce, like, you gotta work if you want to be the best, you know? They had long hours of training. Yes, some people said that it wasn't the best, but for me, like, especially just starting off, I needed that push, you know? And like, just from Elijah coming back from college every once in a while to visit home, he will always influence his new teaching that he learned in the northern, part of wrestling. Like he implemented a lot of just moving forward, a lot of good stance of motion, a lot of up and down fakes, and just firing off all the time, firing off different attacks each time, and Coach James, the guy that ran BWC before we did, I can just honestly say that was probably the best coach I ever had, just because his information, when it came down to technique, was just way different from anything I ever heard in my life. He was definitely a world-class teacher, and he definitely illustrated that you should live as efficient as possible, no matter what you do. He always said, live by the sword or die by the sword. And I took that to heart, and that's what really helped me is push myself my senior year in high school. I want to stay title.
Well, that's awesome. And obviously, you had a great career in high school at Thompson. You were plagued with injuries. What were you doing to constantly remind yourself about your goals every year? That maybe you had an injury for part of the season. You were able to come back. I know you weren't able to wrestle at a state tournament your junior year. What were you kind of telling yourself constantly that you got this?
Well, for starters, I had really good friends on that Thompson team. Guys like I said, Sam Latona, Chandler Akins, Dylan Masord, Derek Hussey, and other guys. They all know who they are. Like, they always were just very encouraging. They made me feel like I was always welcome. They made me feel like I was at the state tournament. Even though I was laying at home in my bed watching on my phone, they always made me feel welcome. And that really helped me to keep pushing on, just sit there and say, at least I want to win a state title, just to sit there and thank them. It just felt right.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you moved from Christian Millard High School in Tennessee to Washington High School in Illinois. Why did you make that move?
It was all mostly just a growth and development through the sport of wrestling. Pretty much just give me better exposure, more competitive exposure, leading up into wrestling to the Division I Big Ten Conference in Indiana. Just being from Illinois too, because a lot of people ask me that question. I'm not from Alabama or even from Tennessee, even though I went to school in Tennessee. I'm originally from Illinois, grew up and trained at the Harvey Twisters, the historical Harvey Twisters. So that was a state that, just talking with my dad and my parents, or talking with my mom and my dad about it, they knew that in order for me to be as prepared as I could, I needed to go to a tougher state, to where the competition was a little more steeper, to where people kind of took wrestling more, a little more serious, and just pretty much as a preparation to get me ready, to compete in the Division I Big Ten, and that tournament was tough. I mean, that state, that whole year was tough. That was probably one of the toughest years of my career as being a student athlete, especially in high school. I had the surgery on my knee. I tore my lateral meniscus my senior year, towards the middle of the year, had to get that removed. Came back from the conference tournament, regional tournament, sectional tournament, and state tournament. And by the grace of God, I was able to come out victorious. Because there was a lot of doubt behind me, even though I was coming in, seated top overall. It was still a lot of doubt, because I really only had, one limb that wasn't in the equation, in a sense. So, moving up to Illinois, though, it was definitely, just to get me more prepared, get me more prepared, get me more ready to go, give me more confidence, leading up into pretty much fighting with the Wolves. And that's what the Division I Big Ten Conference is all about. So.
That's definitely the one bone I have to pick with the Athletic Association over in Illinois. They've got 20 little things you got to take to get to the state tournament. Obviously, Alabama's only got one, but I'm like, man, you got to make these kids wrestle all the time. I know they love wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
That's just more times to get injured.
Oh yeah, right.
So obviously, you wrestle at Indiana, which is a Big Ten school. What does it take to wrestle at a Big Ten school?
Man, it takes a lot of years of dedication, consistent grinding, consistent preparation, but not just regular preparation, but a perfect preparation. Just consistent hours and hours of detailed training, detailed drilling, detailed technique. And it takes, once you get to that point, because everyone at that level, has been doing the same thing that you've been doing. Maybe in different variations, depending on their style, depending on their coaching style that they were under. But for the most part, it's all the same. Hard work, dedication, consistency, being persistent, staying focused for long periods of time, being able to endure pain for long periods of time, and still being able to function. That was the biggest thing I feel like I took away from competing Division I Big Ten. It's a constant grind all the time. There's no such thing as an easy match or an off match, competing at that level. So you have to be ready mentally and physically. And in some people's case, you got to be ready spiritually and emotionally. I'm saying if you're a person that has a very, very deep faith in God or a deep foundation in God, which I did, which Manny does, you definitely don't need him. You definitely don't need him because you cannot do it on your own. It's tough. You need help. You need help to continuously, to keep progressing when you get to that level because everybody's good and everybody, has the same mindset when it comes to, competing at that level. They want to win. They want to dominate. So it's like one off match, one off, training cycle that can affect a whole year when you talk about competing in the Big Ten.
So Manny, what was it like having a Big Ten Division I wrestler as an older brother coming back and being able to help you?
Well, in simple words, it was awesome. It was something that I definitely needed, because the training that I was doing, nothing against it, it definitely prepared me for being mentally tough and just really getting stuff done. But that technical portion and just that killer mindset is the only thing that I was missing. It was just something, it was just like a flip that was switched when he came back. Like the way that he sit there and coached me, it was different, He added a lot of compliments, but he also told me what he did wrong and how we can fix it. I was just, the only thing that I remember growing up and wrestling was someone would tell me what I did wrong, but they wouldn't really explain what to do from it, And he was a good teacher by telling me, hey, if you sit there, you get on a shot and you hit both your knees, you need to knee slide up, get your head up, knee up, get to your feet. It's small stuff like that, the small details that I was missing. He was the guy that sit there and just started compiling, here, this is what you need. Now let's get to the next level. It's just a constant grind, like you said, it's just a constant grind. And you got to be mentally prepared, and if you don't got a foundation, then you're just going to crumble and fall,
So where did you come to Alabama to coach?
So it's actually a long story. I was just going to get into you. Previously graduated from college, a job was presented to me with the railroad, and my dad was kind of the main facilitator behind that. And I was like, as far as just financially, I knew I'd be set. Not necessarily right then and there, but I knew over a long period of time, I'll be set. I wouldn't have to worry about anything financially, And then instead of just following my first love, which was wrestling, I kind of took another route, just to kind of make ends meet more. And within that whole transition, I was stationed in Birmingham. At first, the plan was for me to be stationed in Indiana or Illinois because I was already up there. But because my dad was down here and he knew more about railroading than I did, I chose to go down there with him just so I could have somebody I knew I could trust. So, within that whole time span, I spent 6 months over at the railroad, and from there, found out it really wasn't for me. It wasn't what I like to do. It wasn't really something that I could comprehend, because it wasn't something that I really, I didn't know as well. I know wrestling almost like the back of my hand because I've been doing it for so long. I've been doing it since I was 5 years old. I still stopped competing at the age of 22. So, you do the math, that's 17 years. And then on top of that, for the most part, I got out of railroad and came back and realized that, man, I need to get back on the mat, and it was almost like, I never really left. And I was out of it for, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, just not really even touching the mat, not even seeing the mat. And then from there, I realized, man, I need to really take off with wrestling. I need to get back into wrestling. And I was thinking more so being a competitor than a coach. But then I realized that, dang, I had some really good coaches underneath, or I had some really good coaches leading me through the ranks, you know, while I was starting from the age of 5 to ending off when I was at age of 22 in college, graduating from IU. I had a lot of good coaches that I could really, you know, like revert to and kind of, you know, use their methods to help build my method of coaching. Because I don't really tailor after one individual coach. It's a bunch of methods put together that's helping form my coaching style, which I feel like is making it very effective and making it very fun. And this is something that I'm passionate about, so I'm going to continue to keep learning how to evolve my style of coaching. You know, not just as a coach neither, but also as a competitor, because that takes a big chunk into it. Being an effective coach, you have to also be an effective competitor, I feel like, in a sense. You know, because if you're not, then, you know, you're not really going to be pushing your kids to be the best that they can be. You know, developing an individual versus trying to develop a whole team all together, you know, it's two totally different things. Developing an individual might be different than developing an entire team because everybody is different. Learning how to coach individual by the individual is a big step. You know, it's a big learning curve for me as well. And I feel like I'm definitely starting to get the grasp on it. And this is definitely one of those things that, you know, now that I'm in the coaching realm, I found a new version of competition. You know, I'm no longer a competitor trying to beat another competitor. Now I'm training someone, you know, to beat this guy or to dominate this guy. So it's pretty cool, you know, being able to work through someone and seeing them grow, not just mentally, physically, you know, but emotionally, at times spiritually. You know, it's a very beautiful thing, you know, and not just seeing myself grow, but seeing all the hard work that I put in, you know, throughout the years, helping that form up to help me build an effective coaching style to not just cater to one person, but many different, you know, different versions and different styles of wrestling. You know, it's pretty cool. So,
what do you bring to the table as a coach, a new coach coming into the Alabama scene?
I would say just from, if you want to go based off of credentials, I mean, I've wrestled a lot of really good guys. I mean, a lot of guys know Spencer Lee, a lot of guys know Sebastian here. It didn't go too well, but at the same time, I'm a student of the sport, so even when I lose, it's not really that I lost. I learned something from the loss, and I learned something from every single one of those losses to the point to where, okay, coming out, I didn't win that match, but at the end of the day, I still won. You know, because I knew, okay, this guy beat me here, he beat me here, he beat me there. What do we do to stop that, to avoid that? So I take that back and I show it to my young wrestler. I show it to my younger brother. You know, I show it to other young prospects that are, you know, in college now that's going through the ranks and they want to know what it's like to wrestle Division I Big Ten. And I give them a feel of what it's like. It's brutal. You know, I still got it in me to where I can still push the pace and get after it. I'm still young. You know, and from there it's really made me a lot smarter and a lot more just wrestling savvy, and it's improved my wrestling IQ a whole lot. You know, just wrestling those guys, being around really good coaches, Angel Escobedo, Dwayne Goldman, Nick Simmons, Travis Pasco, while I was in college, and even Brandon Wright and Isaac Jordan, Mike Dixon. Man, it's crazy. It's crazy. You know, and all the knowledge that they spilled on me at the time, it might not have really been sinking in with me, you know, because I was just so worried about winning the national title, being on that podium, and I was like, I'm just going to do whatever it takes. You know, I know that they want me to do this, and I really feel like it works, but I'm like, dang, I don't got enough reps in that though. So I had to go back to what I do best. You know, and at the end of the day, it didn't work out in my favor, but I felt like, you know, I still won because of the knowledge and expertise that I gained from it. You know, so my experiences through wrestling in high school and in college and wrestling against some very top competitors has really, you know, it's brought a lot to the table for me, especially when I entered into the coaching realm.
What would you say you bring to the table as a coach here?
I mean, I like to just play the role as an assistant, you know. I like to help out Elijah. I like to help out the kids, you know, especially the kids that I see a lot of potential in, people that I see that was like me growing up, you know. I like to help those kids out, you know, push them, make them want to be better than me, you know, because honestly, I still want to compete, you know, I still want to get on the mat, and due to injuries, I couldn't do as much going forward, looking big into freestyle, stuff like that. And I just want to show like my guys that, if you still want to do this, you go do it. Don't let no one tell you can't do it. So just basically I just want my kids to know that like, hey, no matter what, we're always gonna get 1% better each day. And don't let no one tell you that you can't do it, because honestly I'm just gonna call them a liar straight to their face,
Well, I know that your brother definitely appreciates that he's got someone in the room that not only that he trusts, but can instill the same moral and ethical values that he holds into the kids. Because it's hard for one person to do 60 people, but when you got another person, you're able to cut just about that in half. And obviously it's awesome that you guys are growing constantly. We'll mention it later, but they're open mat. I think, what did you guys say, like 60 kids the other night?
Oh yeah, close to it. I'm saying there was a bunch of hammering. We probably had about in total 12 to 15 state champs in the state of Alabama in here. I said we had the Pope brothers, Wyatt brothers. We had Will Garrett. We had a few other kids from other schools that were really good. I believe we had Cam Tipton, Brody Christmas. We had Matt Chandler, we had Harris Mitchell. They didn't win state, but those guys are hammers, straight hammers. And there's Zach Fleury as well, 113-pound state champ from that stadium. He was in there as well. So it was a tough room. It was a tough room, and I mean, like, just me seeing that, and Manny seeing it, like, automatically get excited. Like, wow, yes, cool. Because we know that having good competitors in the room, that's how you make other kids better. So for our kids that this is their first year, second year, third year, and they're trying to get over their hump, having guys like that in the room, it's a no-brainer. They're gonna get better. They're forced to get better. If they don't want to get better, then they gotta quit. It's either one or the other. Either you get better or you go do something else.
I think that's really awesome to hear. I know that in my time, there's always been a little bit of animosity between some of the clubs, but I'm glad that you guys are able to be a centralized location. That maybe these people aren't chirping at this person, but they're just here, and that's what we need. It's a club that can get everyone together. Because I don't know how many times I'm going to see Cam Tipton wrestle Brody Christmas outside of somewhere like here.
No. I'll say you won't really, because I'll say they're in two different rounds or two different divisions.
Yeah.
So you'll rarely see that match, man. And those are young kids, man. They got a lot of potential to wrestle Division I, easy. As long as they just stay around they have the right coaching, the right mentors in their ear, and being around the right positive people. Because that plays a factor too. The people that you hang around, they eventually become who you are. That's pretty much. I'm not sure what it's really called, but when you're around negative people, you eventually become negative, even if you feel like you're not negative. It's really weird. So,
how were you guys able to handle the passing of the torch? You guys, I think I've seen a very great transition between Coach James and Coach Oliver here. What were some of the things you guys were able to do by keeping your kids, hey, don't worry, this is the guy, I trust him, this is the guy who's going to take you to the next level?
Well, I mean, honestly, just the positive reinforcement that we both bring to the table, Like I mentioned earlier, he was the first one to introduce it to me for awards. If a guy loses, it's not really lost. It's experience. You gain something, take away from what you can, Like basically saying, if you did something wrong in the match, we're going to find a way to fix it. It's not just the end, oh, you did bad, you did terrible. No, we got a way to fix that. Now let's just keep pushing. We're going to do this together. We like to make ourselves look like leaders instead of just bosses, if you know what I mean. We hop in and wrestle around with the kids, do sprints with the kids, We have to do that extra mile with them, just to sit there and let them know that we got their backs no matter what,
Yeah, absolutely. I think the transition was really good, and to just piggyback off of what Manny was saying, I felt like, the positive reinforcement and just being consistent with it and being genuine with it goes a long way. A lot of kids want to hear that they did a good job. Even when it wasn't, even when that it wasn't the very, very best that they could have done. Just constantly telling someone, hey, that's good, it's improving. Even when it's not completely there yet, goes a long way. Because a lot of kids, not everyone comes from the same environment to where mentally they're completely stable, mentally they have that self-confidence, and mentally they already found who they are as a person. Because the moment you find who you are as a person, the moment you fully develop who you are as a person, or come to somewhat of a completion stage of your identity, that's when you find that self-confidence, right? So no matter what anyone says to you, they can say, oh, you're garbage, or you did this bad. You're like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm just keep doing what I do, that's what I like to do. A lot of kids are looking for that leader, that mentor, that coach, that competitor that's in the room with them, constantly pushing them and telling them, hey, you can do it, you keep doing it. Even though they hadn't hit puberty yet, or even though they got really weak core strength, or even though, one of their arms might not be as big as the other, or legs are longer than their arms, or arms, whatever, like the mindset it plays a big factor in wrestling. I was a psychology major, more focused in sports psychology, neuroscience. So I understand that positive reinforcement is big. There's nothing wrong though with negative reinforcement, but it has to be followed up by positive reinforcement. Because kids always remember really the last thing that a coach ever really said to them, or one of the most impactful things, or the biggest thing that a coach ever said to them, or a leader or a mentor ever said to them, especially if they look up to them. And luckily or not luckily, it was very, very fortunate. We were very fortunate that Coach James, he did put us around the kids and the parents, so when it was time for him to resign, they already knew who we were, they knew what we were about, they knew what we stood for, the parents knew what we stood for. We already built pretty good relationships with the parents, with the kids, with other coaches. So it was just one of those things that it was a pretty smooth transition. At first it was one of those things that it was like, wait, did that just happen? Oh my gosh. Well, what do we do? And then it's like, we just stay consistent with how we were, nothing changed. Just because we got into a position of power, that doesn't mean that we allow the power to be who we are. We use that power to strengthen us, to make us better people, better coaches, better mentors, better competitors, better leaders. So I feel like, it was definitely a smooth transition. And once people started to really get comfortable with us, because we are the new kids on the block, or the new guys on the block, and seeing it, they're pretty cool, and they know what they're talking about. It's only going to take off from here. And I'm really looking forward to growing wrestling in the South. One of my main goals, and I know that one of Manny's main goals, is to build Alabama wrestling and make it just more competitive overall. So when you look at a state like Alabama, California, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Iowa, New Jersey, New York, Virginia, it's no difference. It's like, dang, it's a lot of hammers down there in Alabama. That's how I would like for people to see it. I don't want people to see it as like, oh, Alabama, you mean University of Alabama Roll Tide? No. No, everybody, I feel like a lot of people, wrestling is not that big of a deal down here, even though just from me being in the coaching realm and being around a lot of kids, even when Manny was still competing in high school, I've seen a lot of kids with a lot of potential, and I'm like, wow, if they just had the proper instruction, or if they knew what they really had, they knew their potential, they could easily wrestle. So I know it's a mindset. I know it's a mental factor. I know it's a lot of small thinking, small-minded thinking. If I can be the best in Alabama, that's like, okay, you're the best in Alabama, but Alabama's not that great of a state. So you being the best in Alabama doesn't say anything. Versus you being the best in Illinois or Pennsylvania says a whole lot. So just growing that mindset and expanding the mind to where people are thinking much bigger than Alabama, and that's why we're really pushing for our kids to go to big national tournaments, so they can get that exposure, but not necessarily get that exposure to where it just becomes experience, to where we're getting results, and to where we're thinking that we belong in those tournaments, and not just going there just to say, okay, this is just experience. Let's just go here, go 0-2, 1-2, and let's go back, type of thing, and then that just consistently happen over time, because that's not supposed to happen. If you're in here, you're dedicated, and you really want to get better, you're gonna get better. But if you put up front, and you don't want to get better, then it'll never work out. The more and more time that you put into something, the better and better it should become. If you're really dedicated and passionate about doing it, right?
Well, that's awesome. So, as many of my viewers know, I have a segment on the show called The Weigh-In, where I get people I'm interviewing to weigh in on the hot-button topics that are going on in Alabama wrestling right now. So my first question for you guys is, do you think Alabama wrestling should be one division or multiple divisions? And if we did multiple divisions, how do you think we should split them?
I think one division, to be honest. Like, my senior year, all my years that I went to say tournament, place, and stuff like that, I always thought, all I need to do is win 2 matches, I'm in the finals. I want everyone to know who the actual best at each weight class is. And the state is already small in wrestling, so might as well merge all the divisions and see who the best is at each weight, be more competitive for sure.
Yeah, I think right now it might not be the best time to call for one division. I think that within the next couple of years, give it a little bit of time, give it a little more thought, and then maybe form it into one division, because that's tough. It's really tough. We talk about guys that still need to develop a little tougher mentally to, be able to grasp the concept that, dang, I really got to wrestle the best dude in the state. A lot of guys want to train with the best guys, but a lot of guys don't want to compete with the best guys in the state. Especially if they feel like, okay, I just really want to get one state title here, and then I'm done with wrestling. If your mindset is not thinking beyond high school, in a sense, you don't want high school to be that tough. But if you are thinking outside of high school, you're like, I want to compete Division 1, I want to compete Division 2, I want to compete Division 3, so on and so forth. Then yeah, you're going to want it to be as tough as it can possibly be in high school, so it can prepare you. So because you know that high school, college is much more competitive and much more quality focused than high school. You win a big tournament in college, it's a really big deal. You win NCAA's versus winning the state championship in any state, it's not even a comparison. So I think within time, one division, but right now maybe give it a little more time. Let some of the good guys who don't realize that they're good guys yet, let them get a little more exposure, a little more experience. Allow these kids to definitely get more experience on a national scale. Get them thinking a little more bigger than Alabama, and then make it run. And then that's when you'll see a big shift in things, okay? Because I'd say you still got kids that like, oh man, I want it to be as easy and as simple as possible. And with doing that, you got 3 divisions, then you got all these different multiple weight classes. If anything, I think that maybe shorten up the weight classes. Make it, instead of 14 weight classes, make it 10 weight classes like it is in college. That makes weight classes deeper too, if you want to still keep 3 divisions. Just shorten up the weight classes. Therefore, people can't cut down to this weight or run up to this weight because it's a big gap. And if you do that, you're going to cut too much, or you're going to be heavily undersized. And then that draws the best competition really at certain weights, then you get those super matches. Even though you got 3 divisions. So I think so. Just make the weights smaller. If one division is too much.
Well, is there anything you guys want to say to my viewers before I let you go?
No. Other than, hey man, thanks for having us. We're looking to really grow the state of Alabama. By far, especially when it comes to sport wrestling. So once again, thanks for having us, and just watch out for us.
I always love having people on the shows. It's really cool. And if you guys have any interest in contacting Coach Oliver, I'll leave all his information down in the bio. He has practices on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 6 to 7:30. For youth, you're gonna have to help me out with this. We're gonna try to get this together. I wrote it down, but
so for youth, Thursdays 5 to 6, and then for youth on Sundays it's from 4 to 5. And high school, middle school is Sunday 3 to 4, and then
that's all good.
But like Jackson said, high school and middle school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 6, 7:30.
Well, like I said, thank you guys so much for joining me today, and thank you to all you guys for watching. We always love doing this, and we always appreciate all your support. So stay cool out there wrestling.